On April 8th, several days after Dorothy Turner had begun a program of psychological testing, Donna Agar saw Milligan walking back and forth in his room angrily. When she asked him what was wrong, he answered in his British accent, "No understands." Then she saw his face change again, and then his whole posture, walk and speech, and she knew it was Danny. At that point, seeing how consistent he was, how real these different personalities were, she no longer assumed he was faking. She had to admit that she, alone of the nursing staff, had come around to being a believer. A few days later, he came to her very upset. She could tell quickly that it was Danny. He stared at her and said pathetically, "Why am I here?" "Where do you mean?" she asked. "Here in this room, or in this building?" He shook his head. "Some of the other patients ask me why I'm in this hospital. Maybe Dorothy Turner can explain it to you when she comes to do your testing," she said. That evening, after his testing session with Dorothy Turner was over, he wouldn't talk to anyone. He ran into his room and went to the bathroom to wash his face. A few seconds later, Danny heard his front door open and close. He looked out and saw a young woman patient named Doreen. Though he often listened to her problems sympathetically and talked about his own, he had no other interest in her. "Why are you here?" he asked. "I wanted to talk to you. Why did you get so upset tonight? You know you can't come in here. It's against the rules. But you look so depressed." "I found out what someone did. It's terrible. I'm not fit to leave." Just then, footsteps approached, followed by a knock on the door. Doreen jumped into the bathroom with him and closed the door behind her. "What did you do that for?" he whispered harshly. "I'll get into worse trouble. Now it will be a mess," she giggled. "All right, Billy and Doreen," Nurse Yeager called. "You two can come out whenever you're ready." In the nurse's notes for April 9, 1979, Nurse Yeager wrote, "Mr. Milligan, found in his bathroom with female peer, light off. When questioned about this, stated he needed to be alone to talk to her about something he found out he did. Related with questioning that during his psychological testing this evening with Miss Turner, he learned he had raped 3 women. Became very tearful, saying he wanted Reagan and Adelana to die. Dr. George called. Incident explained. Placed in special care room and on special precautions. Few minutes later, patient observed sitting on bed with bathrobe tie in hand, still tearful, saying he wanted to kill them. After speaking to him for a while, he gave up bathrobe tied. Prior to doing this, placed around neck. In her testing, Dorothy Turner discovered significant IQ variation among the different personalities. Alan, verbal IQ 105, performance 130, full scale 120. Reagan, verbal IQ 114, performance 120, full scale 119. David, verbal IQ 68, performance 72, full scale 69. Danny, verbal IQ 69, performance 75, full scale 71. Tommy, verbal IQ 81, performance 96, full scale 87. Christopher, verbal IQ 98, performance 108, full scale 102. Christine was too young to be tested. Adelana would not come out, and Arthur declined to take the IQ portion of the test, saying it was beneath his dignity. Turner discovered that Danny's Rorschach responses revealed poorly concealed hostility and a need for external support to offset the feelings of inferiority and inadequacy. Tommy showed more maturity than Danny and more potential for acting out. He had the most schizoid characteristics and the least concern for others. Reagan showed the most potential for violent acting out. Arthur she found strongly intellectual, and she felt he relied on this to maintain his position of direction over the others. He also appeared to her to maintain a compensatory feeling of superiority to the world at large. but had feelings of uneasiness and was threatened by emotionally stimulating situations. Emotionally, Alan appeared to be an almost detached personality. She found some things in common, evidence of a feminine identity and of a strong superego which anger threatened to override. She did not find evidence of psychotic process, nor of schizophrenic thought disorder. When Rosalie Drake and Nick Chico announced that the mini-group would be doing trust exercises on April 19th, Arthur allowed Danny to take the spot. The staff had prepared the rec room with tables, chairs, couches, and boards, turning it into an obstacle course. Knowing Milligan's fear of man, Nick had suggested that Rosalie blindfold and let him through. "You've got to work with me, Billy," she said. "It's the only way to build enough confidence in other people so you can live in the real world." He finally allowed her to blindfold him. "Now, hold my hand," she said, leading him into the room. "I'm going to take you over and around the obstacle course, and I'll keep you from being hurt." As she led him, she could see and feel his uncontrolled terror at not knowing where he was moving or what he might crash into. They moved slowly at first and then faster around chairs, under tables, up and down ladders. Seeing his panic, both she and Nick admired him for going through with it. "I didn't let you get hurt, did I, Billy?" Danny shook his head. "You've got to learn that there are some people you can trust. Not everyone, of course, but some." Rosalie noticed that more and more in her presence he assumed the little boy role she had come to know as Danny. It upset her that so many of his drawings contained death images. The following Tuesday, Alan was permitted to go for the first time to the adjunctive therapy building to attend expressive art class, where he would be able to sketch and paint. Don Jones, the mild-mannered art therapist, was impressed by Milligan's natural talent, but Jones could see he was anxious and restive about being in the new group. The bizarre drawings, he realized, were Billy's way of attracting attention and seeking approval. Jones pointed to a sketch of a tombstone engraved with the words, "Do not rip." "Could you tell us something about that, Billy? What were your feelings when you drew that?" "It's Billy's real father," Alan said. "He was a comedian and a master of ceremonies in Miami, Florida, before he killed himself." "Why don't you tell us what you felt? We want to get in touch with feelings rather than details at this point, Billy." Alan threw down his pencil in disgust at still having Billy get credit for his artwork and looked up at the clock. "I've got to get back to the unit to make my bed." The next day he talked to Nurse Yeager about the treatment, complaining that it was all wrong. When she told him he was interfering with the staff and the patients, he became upset. "I'm not responsible for the things that are done by my other people," he said. "We can't relate to your other people," Yeager said. "Only to Billy." He shouted, "Dr. Harding isn't treating me the way Dr. Wilbur told him to. This treatment is no good." He demanded to read his chart, and when Yeager refused, he said he knew he could make the hospital allow him access to his records. He was certain, he said, that the staff was not recording his changes of behavior, and that he wouldn't be able to account for his lost time. That evening, after a visit by Dr. George, Tommy announced to the staff that he was firing his doctor. Later, Alan came out of his room and said he was reinstating him. After she was given permission to visit, Milligan's mother, Dorothy Moore, came almost every week, often with her daughter Katie. Her son's reactions were unpredictable. Sometimes after her visit he would be happy and outgoing. Other times he would be depressed. Joanne Winslow, the psychiatric social worker, reported in the team meeting that she had interviewed Dorothy after each of her visits. Winslow found her a warm and giving person, but speculated that her shy and dependent nature had prevented her from interfering with the reported abuses. Dorothy had told her she always felt there were two Billys, one a kind, a loving boy, and the other someone who didn't care if he hurt people's feelings. It was Nick Chico who noted on the chart that after a visit from Miss Moore on April 18th, Milligan seemed very upset and isolated himself in his room with a pillow over his head. By the end of April, with 6 of the 12 weeks gone, Dr. George felt things were going too slowly. He needed some way to establish lines of communication between the personalities and the original personality, the core Billy. But first he had to break through and reach Billy, whom he had not seen since that Sunday when Dr. Wilbur had convinced Reagan to let him come out. It occurred to Dr. George that it might be effective to confront the core personality and the alter egos with videotaped records of their speech and behavior. Dr. George told Alan about his idea and how important it was for the personalities to communicate with one another and with Billy. Alan agreed to it. Alan told Rosalie he was very pleased about the videotape they were going to make of him. He was nervous about it, but Dr. George had convinced him that he would learn a lot about himself. Dr. George held the first videotaped session on May 1st. Dorothy Turner was present because he knew Billy felt at ease with her and because he intended to try to bring out Adelana. Though he had at first resisted bringing out new people, he realized it was necessary to understand the significance of this female aspect of Milligan's personality. He repeated several times how helpful it would be if Adelana would come out and talk to them. Finally, after several switches to the others, Milligan's face changed to a soft, tearful expression. The voice was choked and nasal. The face became almost feminine. The eyes drifted. "It hurts to talk," Adelana said. Dr. George tried to hide his excitement at the switch. He had wanted her to come out. He had expected it. But when it happened, it came as a surprise. "Why does it hurt?" he asked. "Because of the boys. I got them into trouble." "What did you do?" he asked. Dorothy Turner, who had met Adelana in the jail the night before the transfer, sat by silently and watched. "They don't understand what love is," Adelana said, "what it means to be held and cared for. I stole that time. I felt Reagan's alcohol and pills. Oh, it hurts to talk about it." "Yes, but we need to talk about it," Dr. George said, "to help us understand." "I did it. It's a little too late to say I'm sorry now, isn't it? I ruined the boys' lives, but they just didn't understand." "Understand what?" Turner asked. "What love is, what the need for love is, to be held by someone, just to feel warm and cared for. I don't know what made me do it." During that time, Turner asked, "Did you feel warm and cared for?" Adelana paused and whispered, "Just for a few moments. I stole that time. Arthur didn't put me on the spot. I wished Reagan off the spot." She glanced around tearfully. "I don't like to go through this. I can't go into the courtroom. I don't want to say anything to Reagan. I want out of the boys' lives. I don't want to mess them up anymore. I feel so damn guilty. Just why did I do it?" "When did you first begin to be on the spot?" Dr. George asked. "Last summer, I started stealing time, and when the boys were in solitary confinement in Lebanon, I stole some time to write poems. I love to write poems." She wept. "What are they going to do to the boys?" "We don't know," Dr. George said softly. "We're trying to understand as much as we can." "Just don't hurt them too bad," Adelana said. "When this incident occurred last October, were you aware of what was being planned?" he asked. "Yes, I know everything. I know things Arthur doesn't even know, but I couldn't stop it. I was feeling the pills and the alcohol. I don't know why I did it. I was so lonely." She sniffled and asked for a Kleenex. Dr. George watched Adelana's face closely as he questioned her very cautiously, afraid of frightening her away. "Were there friends you found? Some pleasure in? To deal with some of your loneliness?" "I never talked to anybody, not even to the boys. I talked to Christine. You said it was during the summer that you were on the spot some of the time, and in Lebanon. Were you on the spot before that time?" Not on the spot, but I was there. I've been there for a long time. When Chalmer... Yes, she snapped. Don't talk about him. Can you relate with Billy's mother? No, she couldn't even relate with the boys. Billy's sister, Katie? Yes, I talked to Katie, but she didn't know it, I think. We went shopping together. Billy's brother, James? No, I don't even like him. Adelana wiped her eyes and then sat back, looking at the videotape machine, startled, sniffling. Then she was silent for a long time, and Dr. George knew she was gone. He watched the glazed expression and waited to see who would come on the spot. It would be very helpful, he said gently, persuasively, if we could talk to Billy. The face changed to a startled, frightened look as Billy glanced around quickly to take in his surroundings. Dr. George recognized the expression he had seen in the Franklin County Jail that day Dr. Wilbur had brought out Billy, the core personality. Dr. George spoke to him gently, afraid he would disappear before he could make contact. Billy's knees jiggled nervously. Eyes glanced around fearfully. Do you know where you are? Dr. George asked. No. He shrugged and said it as if answering a yes or no question on a school test and uncertain whether he had the right answer. This is a hospital, and I'm your doctor. Jesus, he'll kill me if I talk to a doctor. Who will? Billy glanced around and saw the videotape camera pointed at him. What's that? That's for recording the session. It's a videotape machine, and we thought it would be helpful to have a record of the session so that you could see what was happening. But then he was gone. That thing frightened him, Tommy said in disgust. I explained it was a videotape recorder, and Tommy snickered. He probably didn't know what you were talking about. When the session was over and Tommy had gone back to Wakefield Cottage, Dr. George sat alone in his office and thought about it for a long time. He knew he would have to tell the court that although William S. Milligan was not insane, in the usual sense of being psychotic, since dissociation was considered a neurosis, it was his best medical judgment that because Milligan was so far removed from reality that he couldn't conform his conduct to the requirements of the law, he was not responsible for those crimes. What remained to be done was to continue treating this patient and in some way make him competent to stand trial. But with less than 6 weeks left of the 3 months provided by the court, how did you cure an illness that had taken psychoanalysts like Cornelia Wilbur in her work with Sybil more than 10 years to accomplish? The next morning, Arthur decided it was important to share with Reagan what he had learned about Adelana during Dr. George's videotaping session. He paced back and forth in the special care room and spoke aloud to Reagan. The mystery of the rapes has been solved. I know now who did it. His voice changed quickly to Reagan's. How you know? I have learned some new facts and put the information together. Who it was? I guess, since you have been blamed for those crimes you didn't commit, you have a right to know. The conversation went on with a rapid-fire switching, sometimes aloud, sometimes in the mind, a speech without sound. Reagan, do you recall at times in the past hearing female voices? Yes, I have heard Christine, and yes, other voices of women's. Well, when you went out stealing 3 times last October, one of our females got involved. What do you mean? There is a young woman you have never met, called Adelana. I never heard of her. She's a very sweet and gentle person. She's the one who has always done the cooking and cleaning up for us. She did the flower arrangements when Alan got the job at the florist shop. It just never occurred to me that, what's she have to do about it? Did she take money? No, Reagan. She's the one who raped your victims. She raped girls? Arthur, how does the rape a girl? Reagan, have you ever heard of a lesbian? All right, Reagan said. How does a lesbian rape another girl? Well, that's why they accused you. When one of the males is on the spot, some of them have the physical ability to perform sex, even though we both know and have laid down the rule that we are to be celibate. She used your body.
You mean I'm blamed all this time for a rape this bitch committed?
Yes, but I want you to talk to her and let her explain.
So that is what all this rape talk is about. I kill her.
Reagan, be reasonable.
Reasonable?
Adelana, I want you to meet Reagan. Since Reagan is our protector, he has a right to know what happens. You will have to explain yourself and justify your actions to him. A soft, delicate voice echoed in his mind, as if from the darkness beyond. It was like a hallucination or a dream voice. Reagan, I'm sorry for the trouble.
Sorry?
Reagan snarled, pacing.
You filthy slut. Why for you go around raping womans? Do you realize what you put us all through?
He turned sharply, stepping off the spot, and suddenly the room was filled with the sound of a woman crying. Nurse Helen Yeager's face appeared at the peephole. Can I help you, Billy? Blast you, madam, Arthur said. Leave us alone. Yeager left, upset that Arthur had snapped at her. When she was gone, Adelana tried to explain herself. You have to understand, Reagan. My needs are different from the rest of you.
Why in hell you have sex with women anyway? You're a woman yourself.
You men don't understand. At least the children know what love is, what compassion is, what it means to put your arms around somebody and say, I love you, care about you, have feelings for you. I must interrupt, said Arthur, but I have always felt that physical love is illogical and anachronistic, considering the most recent advancements in scientific. You're crazy, Adelana screamed, both of you. Then her voice softened again. If you could just experience what it's like to be held and cared for, you'd understand.
Look, bitch,
Reagan snapped.
I do not care who or what you are. If you so much as speak to another person on his unit, or to any other person again, I will make sure you die.
One moment, Arthur said. You do not make those decisions at Harding. Here I am dominant. You listen to me.
You're going to love her to get away with this shit?
By no means. I will handle it. But you're not the one to tell her she can no longer take the spot. You have nothing to say about it. You were idiotic enough to allow her to steal that time from you. You had not enough control. Your stupid vodka and marijuana and amphetamines made you so vulnerable that you put Billy's and everyone else's life in danger. Yes, Adelana did it, but the responsibility was yours because you are the protector. And when you became vulnerable, you put not only yourself, but everyone else in danger. Reagan started to speak, but backed away. Having said that, Arthur continued, I agree that Adelana will henceforth be classified as undesirable. Adelana, you will never again take the spot. You will no longer take time. She moved to the corner, facing the wall, and wailed until she left the spot. There was a long silence, and David came and wiped the tears from his eyes. Seeing the plant in the broken pot on the floor, he watched it, knowing it was dying. It hurt to see it lying there with its roots exposed. He could feel it withering away. Nurse Yeager came back to the door with a tray of food. Are you sure I can help you? David cringed. Are you going to put me in jail for murdering the plants? She set the tray down and put her hand reassuringly on his shoulder. No, Billy. No one is going to put you in jail. We're going to take care of you and make you better. Dr. George took time from his busy schedule to attend the American Psychiatric Association meeting in Atlanta on Monday, May the 8th. He'd seen Milligan the previous Friday and arranged for him to begin intensive therapy while he was gone with the Director of Psychology, Dr. Marlene Cocan. Marlene Cocan, a New Yorker, was among those at Harding Hospital who had from the beginning adopted the diagnosis of multiple personality, although she never expressed this openly. Then one afternoon, as she was talking to Ellen in her office, Nurse Donna Agar greeted her. "Hi, Merlene. How you been?" Ellen turned instantly and blurted out, "Marlene is the name of Tommy's girlfriend." That moment, seeing how spontaneous his remark was, spoken with no time for reflection, Dr. Kokan decided he was not faking. "That's my first name too," Kokan said. "You say she's Tommy's girlfriend?" "Well, she doesn't know it's Tommy. She calls all of us Billy. But Tommy is the one who gave her an engagement ring. She never knew the secret." Dr. Kokan said pensively, "It's going to be quite a shock when she finds out." At the APA meeting, Dr. Harding brought Dr. Cornelia Wilbur up to date on Milligan's progress. He told her he now believed fully that Milligan was a multiple personality. He described Milligan's refusal to recognize the other names in public and the problems it was causing. He's used it in Dr. Pugliese's group therapy and caused problems with the other patients. When he is asked to share his problems, he just says, "My doctor told me not to talk about it." You can't imagine the effect of that and of his tendency to play junior therapist. He's been dropped from group. "You've got to understand," Wilbur said, "what it does to the alter personalities not to be recognized. Sure, they're used to responding to the original name, but once the secret is out, it makes them feel not wanted." Dr. George considered that and asked Wilbur what she thought about his attempting to treat Milligan in the brief time left. "I think you should ask the court for at least another 90 days, she said, "and then I think you should try to fuse him so that he can help his attorneys and stand trial." The state of Ohio is sending a forensic psychiatrist down to look him over about 2 weeks from now, on May 26. "I was wondering if you'd consider coming to the hospital for a consultation. I could use your support." Wilbur agreed to come. Although the APA meeting was scheduled to run until Friday, Dr. George left Atlanta on Wednesday. He called a team meeting at Wakefield the following day and told the staff that after discussing the case with Dr. Wilbur, he had decided that not recognizing the alternate personalities was counter-therapeutic. "We thought if we ignored the multiple personalities, perhaps that would integrate them, but actually it's just caused them to go underground. We've got to continue to stress the need for responsibility and accountability, but we've got to avoid repressing the various personalities." He pointed out that if there was to be any hope of achieving fusion so that Milligan could go to trial, all the personalities would have to be recognized and dealt with. Rosalie Drake felt relieved. Secretly, she had always responded to them anyway, especially Danny. It would be easier now for everyone, having it all out in the open instead of pretending it didn't exist, just because of the few who still didn't believe. Donna Agar smiled when she entered the new plan on the nursing goal sheet of May 12, 1978. "Mr. Milligan will feel free to refer to other personalities in order to allow him to discuss feelings which he otherwise finds hard to express. Evidence will be his frank discussion with staff. Plan: A. Do not deny that he experiences these dissociations. B. When he believes he is another personality, elicit his feelings in that situation."